מסכת מנחות, פרק 13, ברוך השם. We're about to start this perek. Today we're going to study page 105. We'll start on page 104b. The Torah tells us in Leviticus chapter 7, but if his offering is a vow or a gift offering, and the main subject that we're going to discuss in this perek is vow. We going to speak about vow concerning meal offering, since a vow to bring an offering is create an obligation to bring one. It's obviously necessary to determine the exact meaning of the vow in cases where it's uncertain, and I think that it's very much connected to the Torah portion. We read about Yaakov Avinu that made a vow, and it looks like conditional vow, im yeh Elokim imadi. So obviously there's a lot to discuss, and since when a person makes a vow, makes a difference, and when it's come to offering, there are different type of offering in which he does not specify the particulars of his vow, or else does not recall to those specifics. So in the case in which he did not specify the terms of his vow, he's only obligated to bring the smallest amount implied by the term of his vow. Now, since the person's words do not indicate a willingness to bring more than the minimum, the vow cannot obligate more. However, in a case in which he is in doubt about what amount he specified, he must bring whatever may possible have been specified in order to ensure his fulfillment of his vow. The Mishnah Kedosha, Harei alai isaron yavi echad. If one said, I take upon myself to bring an isaron, he brings one, which is if someone vowed to offer an isaron of flour for a meal offering, he needs to bring only one such measure, although it is obvious that the Mishnah states it's a in the way, later on the Gemara expand on that. Esronim, if he said esronim, yavi shnaim, he brings two. If he vowed to bring esronim, the plural form of isaron, without specifying how many such measures, he needs to bring only two, because that is the minimal plural measure. Peirashti ve'eni yoda ma peirashti. If he said, I specified, but I did not know what I specified, yavi shishim isaron, he must bring 60 isaron. If he specified an amount of flour in his vow, but when it comes to fulfilling, he does not recall what he specified, he must bring a mincha consisting of 60 isaron of flour. It's because the 60 isaron is the largest mincha which can be brought in one vessel. However, since the vow might actually have been for less than this, he stipulates that whatever it's not included in the obligation incurred by the vow is being brought as a voluntarily offering. That's the way the Mefarshim explain. Harei alai mincha. If he said, I take upon myself to bring a mincha offering, yavi ezo sheyirtze. He may bring whichever he wishes, because the Torah specified 5 types of menachot which can be brought voluntarily: the mincha of solet, fine flour, the machvat, marcheshet, chalot, and rekikim. So if someone vows to bring a mincha without specifying which of the 5 types he have in mind, he may bring any of them. However, he may not bring a minchat nesachim of libation, despite the fact that these 2 may offer voluntarily, because it can be assumed that he means one of them menachot, which are generally brought voluntarily and not as an accompaniment for an animal offering. Rabbi Yehuda Omer yavi minchat hasolet shehi miyuchedet sheba menachot. Rabbi Yehuda says he must bring a mincha of fine flour. That is the principle of mincha offering. Mincha, mina mincha yavi achat. So if he said, I take upon myself to bring a mincha offering, or a kind of mincha offering, he brings one. Menachot, if he said menachot, so yavi shtayim, a kind of mincha offering, he brings two. Peirashti, if he said I specified, but I do not know what I specified, ואני יודע מה פירשתי, יביא חמשתן, he must bring all five of them. פירשתי מנחה של עשרונים ואיני יודע מה פירשתי, if he said I specified the mincha offering of עשרונים, עשרons, but I do not know what I specified, יביא מנחה של 60 עשרון, he must bring a mincha offering of 60 עשרון. רבי אומר, here רבי יהודה הנשיא says, יביא מנחות של עשרונות, או עשרונים מאחד ועד 60. So he said that his obligation is satisfied only when he brings meal offering of all sizes. So in tenth of a fa, ranging from 1/10 of a fa to 60/10, for a total 60 meal offering with a total volume of 1,830 tenths of an ephah, or 183 ephahs. So he fulfills his vows with one of the meal offerings, and the rest are rendered voluntarily meal offering. Now the Gemara, the Mishnah teaches that one who says it is incumbent upon me to bring 1/10 of an ephah for a meal offering must bring a meal offering of 1/10. So the Gemara asks, Pshita, isn't this obvious? Esronot yavi shtayim itzrich alei. So why it's necessary to teach that in the Mishnahs? The Gemara answers, it's necessary for the Mishnah to mention this case as a preamble to the following halacha, that if one says it's incumbent upon me to bring 1/10 of a ephah, itzrich alei, esronot yavi shtayim itzrich alei, so he must bring 2/10. So now the Gemara said, it's also obvious. So the Gemara answer, mi'ut esonot shtayim itzrich alei. It is necessary to teach the minimum amount that the word 1/10 is used in reference to 2/10. Now, there are version of the Gemara test which alter the nature of the discussion. So you see it in the Torah Kodesh that you follow the standard version, that the answer is, it was necessary to teach that the minimum number of 10th is 2. The new information taught is that 2 is the minimum number with constitute a plural. If one alternative version of the Gemara, the answer is, this was necessary to teach the case where one said, I specified several tenths of an ephah, but I do not know which number I specified. And the Gemara's question is that it's obvious that the minimum number which constitutes a plural is 2, and if so, the Mishnah does not convey any new information. And the answer is that the novel point of the Mishnah is concerning the text in the next case, where one specified but does not remember how many he specified. That's the way both Tzon Kodashim, Tosfot Yom Tov, and Chok Natan hold in that girsa. The Mishnah continues and said, Peirashti ve'ini yodea ma peirashti yavi 60 isaron. This is kind of happening when the age of people who suffer from all kind of forgetfulness, even dementia. It happens that the person said, I specified several tenths of a ephah, but guess what? I don't know the number, what exactly I specified. So, therefore, he must bring 60 tenths. Mantana. Who is the one who taught this? Because this is very similar to the last scenario in the Mishnah. Perashti mincha shel esronim ואני יודע כמה esronim perashti. So over there, the Mishnah specified Rebbe that disputed Tanakama and he said that you need to bring 60 menachot nifradot from one isaron. Anyway, אמר חזקיה דלא כרבי. Cannot be the view of opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. The Rabbi Amar, what did Rabbi said? יביא מנחות של עשרונות מאחד ועד 60. He said that a person must bring meal offering of all sizes. So it's a tenth of an ephah, ranging from 1/10 of an ephah to 60/10. And here, in our scenario, what we learned that you need to bring 60 esronim only. So that has to be according to Tanna Kama, and Rabbi disputed that. Another view, Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu teima Rabbi, even you hold that this view follow Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, ואומר פירשתי עשרונות, אבל לא קבעתים בכלי. Here he said that I specified several tenths of an ephah, but I did not establish that they must be brought in a one vessel. So the Yashar V'Tov, based on this Rashi, said, he didn't say that he bring mincha shel esronim. He said that he said during his vow that he can bring the mincha according to his will, either one vessel or several vessels. דמייטין שיטין עשרונות בשיטין מנה. That he must bring 60/10 of an ephah in a 60th vessel, a tenth of each vessel. Now another phase in the Mishnah, if a person said, it is incumbent upon me to bring a meal offering. So the first Tana holds, he may bring whichever meal offering he wishes. But Rabbi Yehuda maintains that he must bring fine flour meal offering, as it is the most notable of meal offering. Tana. So we learn in the Braita, Rabbi Yehuda says that he must bring fine flour meal offering. הואיל ופתח בו הכתוב תחילה. Since in a passage in the Torah that discussed the meal offering, which is the book of Vayikra, chapter 2, the pasuk opens with the fine flour meal offering first, mentioning it before the other meal offering. Ela me'ata, if you go by this reasoning, Omer arei alai ola, if a person said the general statement, it is incumbent upon myself to bring a burnt offering, and he didn't specify if that's applied to what type of animal or bird. Yavi ben bakar, so he now must bring a young bull as his burnt offering. Why? Ho'ilu patach bo hakatuv, since the pasuk opens with it. Page 105, Tchila, first. So in the book of Vayikra, the first chapter, the Torah gives us 3 types of voluntarily burnt offering. Shlosha sugei olot nedava. 1 is the bull, min habakar. 2, keves soez, lamb, goat, min hatzon. 3, bird, toro, ben yonah, min ha'of. So the first part, dealing with what? Olat bakar. So they said, since they start with a burnt offering in the young bull, so therefore that's what he needs to do. He needs to bring min hatzon. If he said from the flock, Yavi keves, he must bring lamb as his burnt offering. Ho'ilu patach bo hakatuv tchila, since the verse opened it first. Leviticus 1. This is the quote. And if his offering is of the flock, whether of the lambs or of the goats, for a burnt offering, he shall offer it a male without blemish. Now, min ha'of. If one said, it is incumbent upon me to bring a burnt offering from a type of bird, Yavitorim, he must bring doves as his burnt offering. Again, the same מהלך. הואילו פתח בו הכתוב תחילה, since the pasuk, the verse, opens it first. So, is a book called חקרי הלכות. In that book, חקרי הלכות, חלק ב', סימן סמך ג', he asked a question. He bring Midrash Rabbah Parashat Bereshit. And he said, בכל מקום הוא מקדים תורים בבני עונה. Every place he bring first תורים, those, before בני עונה. And in one place, מקדים בן יונה, where is written, ובן יונה הוא תור לחטאת. מגיד ששניהם שקולים, meaning תורים ובני יונה, they are equal. So if that's the case, why we said that that's first? The Torah said it's equal. And he expanded on that. You see also in a book called Kerem Chemed, we bring the Brisker Rov that he asked this question. We tried to give an answer and left it Tzarich Yun. This Sfat Emet and Chagiga 12 that bring to Evan and ask the same question. And it's all depend upon that person. But Son Kodashim, see, most of the books, they left it in Tzarich Yun. Anyway. Alama, Tnan. That's something we Mitzvah we're going to learn on page 107. If someone said, Arei alai ola, it's incumbent upon me to bring a burnt offering, Yavi keves, he needs to bring lamb, which is the least expensive land animal sacrifices and offering. Rabbi Lazar ben Azar Omer to o ben Yonah. He said that either dove or pigeon as a bird burnt offering. Velo palig Rabbi Yehuda did not dispute it, disagree with them. What exactly means when Rabbi Yehuda said that it should be notable of the meal offering? He meant to say the let Leshem Levi, that there is no modifier, that only a fine flour offering is referred to simply as a meal offering with no other qualification. והתנא הואילו פתח בו הכתוב תחילה. But what do we learn? We learned since the pasuk, the verse, opened it first, the Gemara answer, והתנא הואילו פתח בו הכתוב תחילה כאמר, אחי כאמר, איזו מנחה מיוחדת שממלכות לשם לוואי, זו שפתח בו הכתוב תחילה. So here you see the reason of Rabbi Yehuda hold that one must bring a fine flour meal offering is not because the pasuk opens with it, but because it has no modifier. So the Gemara asks, Pshita, that's obvious that Rabbi Yehuda is referring to Minchat Asoret Kamar, the fine flour meal offering, because it said it clearly. The Gemara says Simana Be'alma. It's merely a service, a mnemonic, as one should not forget the type of meal offering Rabbi Yehuda is referring to. Mincha, min ha-mincha. So the Mishnah teaches that if a person says, it is incumbent upon me to bring a meal offering, or is incumbent upon me to bring a type of meal offering, he must bring one meal offering. Why? Because he stated in a singular way. But if he said in the plural, so he must bring two meal offering. By Rav Papa minei mincha ma'u. Papa raised a dilemma. If one said it is incumbent upon me to bring types of meal offering, use a combination of singular and plural form. So, Kivan de Amar Minei, since he said types, Tartei Kamar, he meant plural too. My mincha, what is a meal offering? The kulam menachot, name mincha mikaryan. Dechtiv v'zot Torah mincha, because the whole concept of meal offering is referring to a singular meal offering. That's what it's written in Leviticus chapter 6, verse 7. They said, and this is the law of a meal offering, general term, or dilma. Kevan de amar mincha, because he used the singular term mincha, meal offering, chada mincha kamar, saying that he intend to bring only one meal offering. Umay mine mincha, what does that mean when he used types of meal offering? Kamar mi mine mincha, chada mincha alai. He's saying of the various type of meal offering, it is incumbent upon me to bring one. Tashma, min mincha, mincha, min mincha, yavi achat. Haminei mincha, shtayim. Ema seifa, go and see the later clause. If one said, it is incumbent upon me to bring meal offering, menachot, min menachot, yavi shtayim. Haminei mincha, types of meal offering, chada, is to bring one. Ela mehaleka lemashma minah. Cannot learn from this Mishnah, is no potential inferences are basically contradictory. Tashma, min menachot alai. So now the Gemara offer another resolution to Rav Papa's dilemma. If a person said, it is incumbent upon me to bring meal offering of a certain type. Yavi shte menachot mimin echad. He needs to bring two meal offering of one type. Ha miminei mincha. But if he said that bring the various type of meal offering, chada, he is required to bring one. The Gemara rejected that. Dilma haminei mincha mevi shte menachot mishne minim. Ve'alotane achi. min menachot alai mevi shte menachot mimin echad. Minei menachot alai mevi shte menachot mishne minin. Ha-minei mincha chada. So the Gemara rejected that, said, Dilma ha-mani. Perhaps this Braita is to whose opinion is this? Rabbi Shimoni, follow Rabbi Shimon, who said, Amar, mechza chalot umechza rekikin yavi. Said that half, you want to bring half of the meal offering as loaves, and half of it as wafer, you must bring it in that manner. Umay mine mincha. What does that mean? Types of meal offering. Mincha deidba trei minei. It means a meal offering that have two types of baked dough. So therefore, bringing one such meal offering is sufficient. אבל רבנן דאמרי מחצה חלות ומחצה רקיקין לא יביא. מביא שתי מנחות משתי מינים. We bring two meal offerings of two different types. The Mishnah teaches that if one says perashti ve'ini yodea ma perashti, I specified a meal offering, but I do not know what meal offering I specified. Yavi chamishtan, he must bring all 5 types of meal offering. Man Tana, who's the Tana that taught this halacha? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, delak Rabbi Shimon. It's not according to view of Rabbi Shimon. The Rabbi Shimon kevan amar mechza chalot mechza rekikin yavi. If you go by Rabbi Shimon, he said that if one wants to bring half of his baked meal offering as loaves and half of it as wafer, he may bring it in that manner. Why does one have to bring only 5 meal offerings to cover all possible vows that he may have made? He should be required to bring several meal offerings baked in an oven to cover all the possible combinations of loaves and wafer. So therefore, inami, even if the Tana of the Mishnah hold according to what Rabbi Yehuda said, Savar lak Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar is said, Kol ha-menachot baot 10, all meal offerings are brought in 10 items. as opposed to a view of Rabbi Meir, that all meal offering brought in 12 items. Ika lesapuka ב14 menachot. So there is a cause for uncertainty which renders the 14 different meal offering necessary. So in addition to the shallow pan meal offering, the deep pan meal offering, and the fine flour meal offering, there are another 11 combinations of baked meal offering that he may have intended. So he may have intended to bring 10 loaves or 10 wafers, or 1 loaves and 9 wafers, 2 loaves and 8 wafers, 3 loaves and 7 wafers, and so forth. אביי אמר אפילו תימא רבי שמעון שמעינן לי לרבי שמעון דאמר מייתי ומתני. So even you go by Rabbi Shimon, we have heard that Rabbi Shimon said, one who is uncertain whether he is obligated to bring a certain offering may bring the offering, and stipulated that if he is obligated to bring an offering, this is his offering, and if he is not obligated, it is a voluntarily offering. So therefore, in a case of the Mishnah, one can bring the 5 types of meal offering with his baked meal offering, including 10 loaves and 10 wafers, and stipulate that whichever items were included in his vow serve as fulfillment of his obligation, and all the others are voluntarily offering. The Tanya Rabbi Shimon Omer. This is a braita in Tosefta Nazir. Rabbi Shimon taught, how should one whose status as a leper is uncertain bring his guilt offering and log of oil on the 8th day of his purification? Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, למחרת מביא אשמו ולוגו. On the following day, after the 7 days of your purification, he brings his guilt offering and his log of oil. 105b, imo, with it, ve'omer, and says a specific condition, which is im metzura'i. If this offering is one of the leper, meaning if I am a leper, זהו אשמו וזהו לוגו. This is the guilt offering, and this is the log of oil. ואם לאו, if I'm not a leper, אשם זה יהא שלמי נדבה. So that this animal that I brought for guilt offering shall be a gift peace offering, because their offering are equivalent. ואותו אשם טעון שחיטה בצפון, and that uncertain, when you have this quandary, you're not sure, so you have uncertain guilt offering, requires the ritual to be in the north of the Beit HaMikdash courtyard, as does a guilt offering, umatan behonot usmicha, and placement of the blood on the right thumb and the right big toes, the Torah specified, and right ear of the leper. You see it in the Torah in Leviticus chapter 14, verse 14. Unesachim utnufat chazeh vashok, placing hands on the head of the animal and the accompanying wine libations, and waving of the breast and thigh. That's basically what the peace offering require. ונאכל לזכרי כהונה ליום ולילה, and is eaten by male of the priesthood for 1 day and the following night, like a guilt offering, and not for 2 days and the interviewing night like a peace offering. ואף על גב דקמפרק מר בשחיטת קודשים. So even though the way that they solved the issue is the slaughter of the animal, which is in the Tractate Zvachim, and page 76, in a manner that will not enable a stipulation to be made in this case. There is a distinction between the case we discuss in Zvachim, the case that we discuss here. So the resolution giving over there in Zvachim was Rabbi Shimon Maite Umatnei. What Rabbi Shimon said, that we have a situation of uncertainty, one may bring an offering and stipulate with regard to type, this type lechatchila, only for remedy of a man, which is in order to purify the person from his uncertain status of as a leper, as there is no other way for him to purify himself. Aval be'alma, but in general, di avad, in a hindsight, in after the fact, after uncertainty arose with regard to the status of a certain offering, it is indeed permitted to sacrifice the offering in a manner that may reduce the amount of time allocate for eating it. Lechatchila, but one may not consecrate such an offering la lechatchila. So the Gemara said, Hani milei gabei shlamim. This stipulation applies what? Only to a peace offering, as sacrificing it as a guilt offering, meat. The kammema'et b'achilatan. So basically, it's to the status of disqualification. The havulo kodashim leveit psul. Aval menachot, but stipulation with regard to meal offering, when one does not remember which type he vowed to bring, is permitted even afilu lekatchila. Does not reduce, it's allowed time for eating. So you derive from that the Mishnah could be follow the view of Rabbi Shimon. Omer le Rav Papa le Abaye. So Rav Papa said to Abaye, how can you explain that the Mishnah could be according to the view of Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Shimon damar mechza chalot umechza kinyavi. Rabbi Shimon said that one who wants to bring half of his baked meal offering as loaves and a half of it as wafer, yavi, he may bring it in that manner as one can bring a meal offering of 10 loaves and 10 wafers, and stipulate that some of them are brought in order to fulfill their obligation, and the rest, nedava, are voluntarily offering. But this cannot be. Why? Hamaite isaron echad mishne isaron v'log echad mishne login. Because the 20 loaves and wafers constitute a total of 2/10 of an ephah in volume, and must therefore be offered in 2 separate service vessels. So you have here a situation where one brings 1/10 of an ephah, which constitutes 1 meal offering, as fulfillment of the individual obligation, from 2 separate tenths of an ephah. And similarly, the 2 meal offering require 2 logs of oil, each of which is sanctified in separate vessel, and it turns out that each meal offering includes 1 log of oil from 2 separate logs. So Abaye answered, it's not difficult. Shamina le Rabbi Shimon de Amar. Rabbi Shimon hold, im evi saron echad mishne esronot. If one brought 1/10 of an ephah as a meal offering from 2 separate tenths, and similarly, if one brought 1 log of oil from 2 separate logs, ולוג אחד משני לוגים, יצא, he has fulfilled his obligation. So my brother-in-law, הגאון, Rav David Avraham Mandelbaum Shlita, in his beautiful book, series of books. One of them is Daf al Daf. He wrote extensively on this sugya. He brought the Rambam, Perek Aleph Milchot Shkalim Halacha Aleph, and he brought Chidush in Machzit HaShekel. He said, "Ve'eno notno bepa'amim rabot." So where is the source? So he brought the Tzofnat Pa'aneach that comment on the Rambam, and he said, "Hine ze talya be'ach de chagiga dafchet amud aleph v'Yerushalmi sham b'peah perek aleph. Im adam cholek chovato lishnei dvarim." Bring the Gemara of Bava Kama Kuf Yud. Gezel hager shehachziro lachatzein lo yatsa. And bring our Gemara here. מה לרב שמעון, אמר, הם הביא יסרון אחד בשני יסרונות יצא, ואף הם נקבעים כאחד. And he said, והרבי שמעון, משום דעה מבואר בדבר רבנו בהלכות זכייה ומתנה, זה צריך לגבי קניין דבר מסוים. And he expand on that. Long explanation on this Rambam based on our Gemara. Anyway, no time, but just for those who understand the language and have the time, it's a beautiful touch here. I know that many Magidei Shiurim, many Rabbonim, that teaching Daf using his books. Anyway, Umikamatz, Heichei Kamatz. More ask, but how does one remove a handful from this meal offering which consists both loaves and wafers? The matnei ve'amar, put a person stipulates and say, if it's separate, loaves only, wafers only, there are kamitzna mechalot ve'achalot. You do the handful from the chalot, so you should be chalot. The kamitzna merkikin, if it's a wafer, the wafer for the wafer, le'averekikin. If mechza rekikin or mechza chalot amrei, if it's a half and a half loaves, half a wafer, the kakametzna mechalot, we do a handful from the loaves. Leheve amechza chalot umechza rekikin, should be half loaves and half wafers. Udeka kametzna merkikin, when we do the handful remove from the wafer, lehavu amechza rekikin umechza chalot. So be for a half a wafer and half loaves. So there's a Yashar V'Tov here that comment on Tosfot Dibur Matchil Shaminan. Anyway, the Gemara said Veha. So the Gemara challenged this suggestion and said Veha ba'em mikmatz chad kometz mechalot. But if the vow was to bring a meal offering that is a half loaves and half wafers, it requires removing one handful from the loaves. Page 106, umirkikin, and wafer together. V'kakametz mechalot arkikin, umirkikin achalot. So basically what we follow this idea, he removes a handful from the loaves for the wafers and a handful from the wafers for the loaves. That's part of the Hatnaya. There is a Yad Binyamin, it's a book that we hold that it has to be exact, because the moment you have this possibility that he made a vow only for loaves, so only for wafers, so any handful, it's prohibited to do haktara. But anyway, Sham'ina le Rabbi Shimon, so the Gemara answers, we have heard that Rabbi Shimon said, the Amar, but Braita, as Rashi said, we brought on page 63b, Im kamatz ve'ala beyado me'echad al shnehem, yatsa. If one brought a meal offering, that is part of loaves and part wafers, and the Kohen removes a handful, and that which came up in his hand was only one of the two types, either only loaves or only wafers. So it basically yatsa. Here you have a fulfillment of the obligation. Why? Because according to Rabbi Shimon, loaves and wafers, they are only part of one offering. So therefore, the Chafetz Chaim said, in the Pirush al Torat Kohanim, he says that therefore, it's not me'akev if you don't have in a handful from both, shne minim. So therefore, since he stipulated this chalot kmitza on both minim ke'echad, so therefore mo'ila kmitza, so the handful is effective. So the Gemara asks, Va'ita motar shemen. There's a problem with this surplus oil, because the Gemara on 75 states that if a meal offering is brought, half is a loaf and half is wafer, the oil is divided equally between them. Half is mixed with the loaves and half is applied to the water, to wafers. So you have here the surplus oil from the wafers may also be mixed with the loaves. But if the meal offering is baked entirely as wafer, the oil that remains is given to the Kohanim. So therefore Abaye's explanation of the Mishnah is problematic. Why? ויקרא מותר שמן דמחצה חלות ומחצה ריקין אמר מותר השמן מחזירו לחלות. So the person expressed in his vow that he will bring half loaves and half wafer. מחצה חלות ומחצה ריקין אמר מותר השמן מחזירו לחלות. So he bring the surplus oil with the loaves. If he said that the entire offering shall be wafer, the surplus oil can be eaten, should be eaten by the Kohanim. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. So the Mishnah said that it's follow Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, the Tanya. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Shimon. So if you have a mincha, a meal offering, that come half loaves and half wafers, moshchan, anointed kemin ki. Kemin ki, the ki is a word in Greek. So that's Rashi in Kitvei Yad. He says that's a word in Greek language. Kemin ki. So moshcha kemin ki, umotar hashemen echal hakohanim. So one anoints the wafer in the shape of the Greek letter, like an X, chai, and the surplus oil is eaten by the Kohanim. So consequently, the surplus oil of a meal offering baked half as loaves and half as wafers is used the same way as that of a meal offering baked entirely as wafers. So now, so far, the Gemara concludes, how do you bring the Mishnah even according to Rabbi Shimon? So now the Gemara transfer the discussion to the Mishnah. If someone forget, he made a vow, and is not remember exactly the details of his vow, so he needs to bring 5 type of voluntarily meal offering. Amar לרב כהנא לרב אשי, והאיכא לספוקה במנחת נסכים. So he said, Rabbi Kana said to Rabbi Ashi, trace the situation the Mishnah speaks, which is, if one specified in his vow which meal offering he will bring, and subsequently, all of a sudden, it happens to people, he forgets. Why does he bring only 5 type of meal offering? Isn't there room to be uncertain with regard to another type of meal offering, namely the meal offering brought with libations that accompany versus a burn offering? This meal offering can also be brought as independently as a gift. You know, it's always the option that, you know, you give it, as we discussed earlier. If it's left or you're not sure, you give it to the temple as a gift, right? Da'amar Rava said, mitnadev adam minchat nesachim b'chol yom. Rava said, you know what, a person may volunteer a meal offering brought with libations every day. If he wishes, why not? You take it. That's what the Torah said in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 15. So Kika mistapka lay. So the Gemara answers that there is no uncertainty with regards to the possibility that he said that he will bring a meal offering brought with libation. You know why? Because it is completely different than the other type of meal offering. Kika mistapka lay. When one is uncertain as to which meal offering he vowed to bring, the uncertainty is only with regard to certain meal offering. So now the Gemara presents a mnemonic, which happens several times in the Gemara. Siman yachid biglal levona belog mekumtza. Just a mnemonic, abbreviation of these discussions upcoming, which is discussion of an individual due to levona, frankincense, with a log, removes a handful of it. Ba'a biglal yachid, ba'a biglal tzibur, lo mistapkale. So when it's come to uncertainty with regard to which meal offering one vows to bring, with meal offering that brought exclusively due to the obligation of an individual. However, if one is not uncertain with regard to a meal offering that he brought due to the obligation of the public, which is meal offering brought with libation, which accompany with communal offering, as well as individual ones, he certainly did not vow to bring this type of meal offering. Ki kamistapkale, ba biglal atzma, ba biglal zevach, lo mistapkale. So when one is uncertain, the offering is brought due to his own, or brought due to the requirement of an offering. Kika mistapkale teuna levona, she'ena teuna levona, lo mistapkale. Kika mistapkale ba belog, ba bishlosha lugim, lo mistapkale. Kika mistapkale teuna kmitza, she'ena teuna kmitza, lo mistapkale. So which is the halacha with regard to a meal offering brought with libations. So what you see so far, that's what the Mishnah teaches us on page 72b. They say that when it's come to Minchat Nesachim, the meal offering of libation, it's one of the three meal offering that the rule is that it has to be total burn on the altar. We learn it on page 74b. So any type of meal offering that all the leftover is eaten, you do not have this rule of kmitza, of the handful, versus the 5 meal offering that voluntarily offering, that the leftover, they require a handful. And obviously you see so far that we have 2 situations that if someone make a vow and is not so sure what's the result, and as we see, we going in Mitzvah Shem next daf to discuss how to handle this type of situation, because in the also real world, we didn't touch so much practical halacha because of time restraint, but in the real world, unfortunately, it happens. Not only people who suffer from dementia, but the real world happen to people that they make all kind of commitments that they don't remember the details. So because it's uncertain, we have to have a discussion to our best to understand what is an either average person intent, or how far we can say that the person can take it as a voluntarily act if he is not sure what exactly he commit himself to.